Want to say hello and good morning to everyone around the world. I want to welcome you to another edition of This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our studio right here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and we have a fantastic show for you today. Joined today by my great and amazing co-host. All of you guys know her already because she's just a beautiful soul, Sheila Applegate. Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Listen, before we get started, we've got some sad news from the world of celebrity and acting and film and actually also TV. The great actor Treat Williams, he was a veteran actor who received acclaim from his lead performance in the musical Hair, and it also starred in the WB series Everwood, died Monday afternoon after being involved in a motorcycle accident near Dorset, Vermont. He was 71. Williams' death was confirmed by a statement by his family, released by his agency, APA. It is with great sadness that we report that our beloved Treat Williams has passed away tonight. And as you can imagine, we are shocked and greatly bereaved at this time. Treat was full of love for his family, for his life, and for his craft, and was truly at the top of his game in all of it. It is all so shocking right now, but please know that Treat was dearly and deeply loved and respected by his family and everyone who knew him. We are beyond devastated and ask that you respect our privacy as we deal with our grief. To all of his fans, please know that Treat appreciated all of you and continue to keep him in your prayers and your hearts. So yeah, Treat Williams dead at 71. He was such a great actor. From what I heard, Sheila, people who knew him and were friends of him just said that he was just the nicest person. Like,
Yeah.
just beyond like the whole like acting thing and all that he was
Right.
just so nice.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So we send our prayers and support to his family that are still on this side of the veil, and hope that you're able to mourn and move through that with peace, ease, and some joy, because I know you're happy. Your life with him was happy.
Yeah.
As I said before, we have a fantastic show for you today. We've got an important topic. But before we begin, I want to remind everybody that, listen, you're part of this conversation. We want your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Just post them right to our chats on Facebook and YouTube. And yes, you can be part of the conversation. We'll just show your comments as we move through today. Sheila, you found this great video that inspired our topic today from one of the nation's most important YouTubers.
Right.
So appreciate you finding this. This is really fantastic. It's from Bo, the Fifth Column. And so let's listen to Bo.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we are going to talk about a question that came in from a cop in Europe, basically asking how to deal with Black Americans in a good way. I will provide my suggestion, but if you are a Black American, down in the comments, put what you would like to hear, what would set you at ease if you were in this situation. The officer said that they would share the information with their colleagues. So what happened? What prompted the message? Short version, a cop in Denmark is walking along, just doing their thing in a shopping district. They get a report that there's a disturbance. So they walk over. They are better trained there than in the United States. So when they make visual contact, they can see the couple. They realize it's not, nobody's getting hurt. So they take their time. And they're listening to the argument as they walk closer, using time, distance, trying to evaluate what's going on. And they kind of figure out as they're walking closer that this is a Black American couple on vacation, husband and wife, and they're arguing over who left the insulin at home. That's it. That's what's going on. Now, it's Europe, you need insulin. The solution to this issue is not to lock somebody up, it's to give you insulin, solve the problem. So the officer walks over, and as soon as they call out, the guy, he throws his hands up. I'm complying. This bothered the cop because from their perspective, this is just a wild reaction to their presence. And they say they understand it, because of the behavior of cops in the U.S., but that's not, they would like to know a way to set people at ease. And again, I'll provide my suggestions, but there might be better ones in the comments section. I would say exactly what you're thinking. It's cool. We're not American cops. I might actually start with that. And if your boss doesn't, want you to constantly mock American police, maybe just start off with, nobody's in trouble. It's okay. How can we help? Because there is a very conditioned response to the presence of law enforcement. And we don't have a lot of Andy Griffith cops left in the U.S. We don't have cops that use consent-based policing, which is what I think y'all use there. It's very different. It's very domination-based. So their reaction isn't, it's not, it's not weird. In fact, that's what you saw is kind of what they get told to do so they can stay safe. And, the officer said it's not the first situation that they've had like this, but it was the worst. There were a number of times before then that they could see the fear in the body language and stuff like that. And it makes it harder for them to do their jobs. I would flat out say, just start the conversation with, it's okay, we're not like American cops. They'll understand what you mean. And I would start there if your boss would allow you. Because of the situation here, I don't know that there's a subtle way to do it. You might have to be pretty direct with this. Or maybe consider treating the person that you want to talk to the way you would somebody who is nonverbal and needs an intermediary. Talk to somebody that's with them and just be like, hey, it's okay. Just wondering what we can do to help. That way there's a buffer. There's not a direct confrontation. Because, that's what they're conditioned. And you know that. I'm going to read something from the email. I am hopeful that with your network and reach, at least some would, in preparation for a Danish vacation, see and know that calling on the police in Denmark does not come with the chance of a death sentence. Like, they get it. They understand what it's like dealing with American cops. They're just trying to figure out how to make the situation more at ease there. So if you have suggestions on what to say or something that might make you feel more comfortable, put it down below. I'll read it. And to American cops, please understand the behavior exhibited by a large portion of American law enforcement is so out of line with the rest of the world that you have people in other countries, law enforcement in other countries, trying to figure out how to diffuse the situation that you have created. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, Sheila, I know that, and so I'm so glad that you found this video because this is a really important topic. I know we've talked about policing in America a little bit here and there, but not from this perspective. So
Right.
thank you for finding this video and bringing this up. What intrinsically in you made you want to talk about this today?
When I was listening, and I heard him describe the man in Denmark raising his arms and saying, I'm complying, I just started to cry. And I contemplated, I mean, it's sad, but, I feel like I'm a compassionate advocate here in the States, but my reaction to that made me realize that even though I'm very aware and doing what I can to change the situation and grow, I could see how much I have numbed to it, or how much it almost just seems like, well, that's the way it is, right?
Right.
They're
Right.
like, so to hear it from that perspective and see someone outside of the United States, in my mind, I saw it very visually, to see someone outside of the United States carrying that depth of fear.
Yeah.
It's just almost like, I was a social worker, right? I was a
Yeah.
therapist. So,
Mhm.
when a family that is full of abuse, which it seems normal to them, when they step out and see something different, it's like this wake up or
Yeah.
something. And I guess I always, in some ways, felt like I was outside of it slightly because I'm not Black American. I am a woman, so there's already fear of police, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
But this took me right out of the country,
Right.
right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. I think it's another. I think it's another dynamic of the realization that um, how specifically in this case, local law enforcement is not the same, specifically in different countries,
Right.
right? And that this is different than like the gun discussion, right? Where we have too many guns, and so there's less, quote unquote, there's less murder, less gun deaths in Europe because there's just less guns, right? That we're not
Right.
talking about that.
Right.
We're talking about the history and the development of local law enforcement in America and how it came about, and that now we're getting into like the psychology of that, and the effects that it's had on both minority communities, specifically in this case Black Americans, as
Mhm.
well as the police themselves in terms of how they police
Right.
and the processes around that. Um, you know, I know we got to take a break, but really quickly, what I got when you sent me the video, I was happy that we were talking about this, because I've spent a lot of time in Europe, across a
I
lot of
was
different
thinking about
countries,
that.
a
Yeah.
lot of different countries in Europe, and um, th- aside of the conversation around how European law enforcement relates to Black Americans, European law enforcement, period, seems more professional,
Mhm.
more deliberative,
Mm.
more conscious than American local law enforcement is. And
Right.
I know and I know many cops, and so I'm talking about this at a macro level, because there are many American cops that do fantastic job, and that kind of thing. But we're talking about this at a higher level, so I just want to make that clear to folks as we're talking about this. And my experience as a Black man in America, and a Black man that has traveled extensively through Europe and has had like certain encounters with European cops, not anything bad or anything like that, just kind of like you walking down the street, or you're at a monument or whatever. um they seem more friendly, more accessible, right?
Mhm.
That you can actually walk up to a European cop and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this or that," and they're happy to show you, even walk you to the place. I mean, I've had that experience where they
Mhm.
actually walk with you, like, "Well, this is on my beat anyway, so I'll walk you to what's happening." Um, and again, like I said before, more deliberative around things.
Right.
And so, and like I said, there's more serious, like what really is the threat? Is there a threat here or not?
Mhm.
So when Bo was talking about the European cop, talking about the fact that he walked up, and they walked slowly up to the thing to see what was
Right.
going on. They didn't just, oh, well, we're going to rush in here and break these two people apart. We're not going to ask any questions. And it was really apparent that this was a husband, like he said, it was a husband and wife arguing over insulin, right?
Right.
Because if this was their first time, which is another thing, how many Americans have traveled over abroad, but they don't realize that the same things that they have in America are available there. So,
Mhm.
insulin. Yeah, insulin is available anywhere. So you don't, you can
Probably
get
more
it.
accessible in other countries. That's a
Right,
whole
right.
other American issue.
Exactly, exactly. So it's not like, and so couples specifically will get into an argument. Oh, you were supposed to remember this, and da 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 da.
Yeah,
And
because they're scared.
yeah, because they're scared, because they need the insulin. And
Right.
so, to have that turn into a situation where here's this Black man, he's in Europe, he doesn't he's his experience here in America is transferred there, where cops roll up on him, he's in a strange place, and his first reaction is, I'm not resisting,
Right.
with his hands up. It's sad.
That is sad. It's very sad.
So, why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, I mean, a very quick break. And when we come back, want to kind of talk a little bit about this one article that I found in CBS News about, what lessons do police in Europe have for American law enforcement. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more of This Morning with Soulivity, with myself, Brian Johnson, and Sheila Applegate.
Years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose. so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We're talking about something important today, and it's about this idea of, European style of policing, and what ideas can European law enforcement have for American law enforcement, and how they relate to people like Black Americans, because there has been trauma that has been around for a long, long
Mm-hmm.
time against Black people here, and it goes back to the days of slavery. I know people want to talk about this. They sometimes people roll their eyes when they hear that, but it's true. American law enforcement, local law enforcement specifically, started with slave owners hiring people to go catch slaves and bring them back to the plantation, and that even included these people crossing over into the North, where Blacks were supposed to be free, but going off in laws around the slave act. I can't remember, 18 something, where if a runaway slave went to the North, they were not safe. That by law, if you could prove that this slave came from your plantation, they could grab them and bring them back. And so those people became law enforcement. That was the beginning of law enforcement, and how we quote unquote protect and serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's this article that I found in CBS News. It's about what lessons do police in Europe have for American cops. And I thought it was fascinating, Sheila. Um, um, I'll start with this one thing where a quote from Marie Haberfield, who's a professor of police science at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York, where she describes policing in America today as incomplete chaos. She says, how is it chaotic? She says, because we have 18,000 different police departments. We have 50 states with 50 different minimal standards for training and recruitment. And for instance, Haberfield's many police are willing but not ready to do their job because of insufficient training. I know people talk, we have this debate about training, right? But here's where the rubber really hits the road. In the US, the average police academy runs 17 weeks. Okay? 17 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically about less than, about 4.5 months, or a little over 4 months. Whereas in places like Norway and Finland, police training runs 3 years.
Right.
In Germany, it's between 2 and 3 years. So what's the effect of the lesser training? You said we're going to see people pushing back against the enforcement and the quality of the enforcement that they are receiving. So that's just one piece.
Yeah, they're just not trained at
Exactly.
all, right? What are they training them in that time?
Exactly.
That's not.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about, if that's if we're talking about 4 months is a third of a year, and these law enforcement academies in overseas are taking 3 years.
Right.
It's basically what, 1/9 of the time.
Right. It's not even.
It's 4 months.
We don't even have certification programs for most things at that.
Exactly. It's not even. It's 4 months out of 36. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So it's 1/18th or whatever that is. Whatever. It's 1/9.
Right. It's not it's not training someone to be aware. There's no way to get the subtleties. I mean, yeah, it's just impossible for them to learn. And if it's not consistent across the states,
Right.
and I know that's a unique thing in the whole states versus the country, but some level of expectation and consistency.
Right.
This is a responsibility that you're holding.
And so all that matters, right, Sheila? I mean, all of that matters deeply. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about like one aspect that's mentioned in this article, as well as things like um according to a recent survey, police in the US spend more than 20% of their time responding to people with mental illness.
Right.
American cops aren't trained for that. They're not.
Right. And then in Sweden, they have a mental health ambulance
Yeah.
that has access to the person's records and everything you need.
Right.
And then also, I think the police go as backup if necessary. But these are all things that we've been talking about in our country.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're done. They're possible. And because everything seems to get moved to a soundbite, we don't seem to take action.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, it would be every different department. And I do know of, I have a friend, Bill Berry, in Auburn, New York, who's worked really closely with the police in that community, which is a smaller city. So on the local level, people may be making these changes, but it's not consistent across the board in any way.
Yeah, and I think about things like, I was talking to a buddy of mine, Kevin Fisher from NAMI in Michigan. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about law enforcement and that kind of thing. We both agree, like the vast majority of law enforcement officers in America are good cops, right? Here's the thing. There is what's called, oh gosh, and I'm losing it right now. Where you get to a point at like oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what the term is, where you get to a point where things change, or where
a tipping
yeah,
point.
tipping point, right? The tipping point is not 51%. That's not, it's never that. It never takes a majority of people for change to happen, or for results to be tainted enough where people are really feeling it. So for instance, if you put a little bit of salt in an 8-ounce glass of water, you can taste the salt in the water, right? And it's no longer like refreshing and that kind of thing. The same is true in life, right? Where if you have 5%, 10% of an organization that is operating from a place of negativity and or racism, discrimination, whatever it is, that is enough to have grave effects of that entire organization on the people that it serves.
Right.
And so especially if that 5 or 10% or even more, we're not trying to quantify it today, but we're just making this point, that if those people are in major urban centers, now that that minority of a percentage is really having a great effect on the people that it's serving. And so that's why we bring it out. And especially when like Black Americans are traveling abroad, it's like, I know it took me a minute to be able to like really feel comfortable and really believe that, wow, it is different.
Mhm.
We're talking specifically Europe. We're not talking about other places in the world where law enforcement is mirrors kind of American, and they're not really trained. It's cousin whatever. Come
Right.
on up, you can be the police chief.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing without any
Yeah.
training. But Sheila, what are you thinking?
I feel like as a society, we go around in circles because it is everything. And I feel
Yeah,
like people are
yeah,
fighting over what it is. And then each individual think it's so like the whole abolish the police
yeah,
was an attempt to get people to understand the origin of it. So even if you are a good cop in a system that is innately prejudiced,
yeah.
your behavior, your training, everything is included in that. And so that is an issue, getting
Right,
people to understand where this came from and somehow shift that. And
right.
then we have the whole mental health piece. We need a
Uh,
community of mental health. And we don't have to make this up. Everyone goes around arguing like, well, I mean, and I think of it as a social worker. When I was in that field, I wouldn't have wanted to knock on a door of someone in crisis without support.
right,
But there's an ambulance, there's a way of doing it, there's models out there.
right.
And then we have the gun issue for
Yeah,
the people carrying here.
yeah.
I mean, when I remember being in England in the 80s or 90s, and there was this huge discussion because they were going to let some police officers carry a gun. And
Right, right,
here I'm coming from, and it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have more crime if they start carrying guns. And here, like, everybody carries. So everybody's more afraid. None of us know if we're walking down the street,
right.
whether we're a police officer or not, who's carrying a gun and could be, so there's all these different areas and we just seem to spin out when if we could just settle down and notice that the solutions are already out there
Right.
and we can do this. It's
Right.
not that hard.
We're gonna take a quick break here. But when we come back, again, this article in CBS News about what lessons do police in Europe have for American cops is so good. We posted it into the chat. Please click on it, read it, because we're going to be talking about it more when we come back. Because I want to talk about this fact around um, there's this professor of criminology at Cambridge who answers the question, how different is policing in America from Europe? So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have more of This Morning with Soulivity.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Yes. Consciously Awesome Living is going to be on tomorrow, Wednesday at 12 noon, where Sheila's going to be talking about imagination. Imagination. We're talking about what lessons do police in Europe have for American law enforcement. And Sheila, there's this part in that article where the correspondent, Seth Doan, asked Lawrence Sherman, a professor of criminology at the University of Cambridge in England, how different is policing in America from Europe? And he replies, oh, it's just like night and day. If someone doesn't drop a knife when an officer tells them to, even if they're not threatening someone, the police can shoot and kill them. It would be a murder in Europe. And then Seth says, are you saying the law in the US is on the police officer's side and it's the reverse in Europe? And Professor Sherman says, I would say that the law in the United States goes to extraordinary lengths to justify police preemptive use of shooting. And then Sherman goes on to note that while U.S. police are quicker to use deadly force and kill far more people per officer than those in Europe, more guns on U.S. streets means law enforcement faces more threats. In fact, police in several European countries, including England, Ireland, and Norway, do not carry firearms while on patrol. Sherman says it really helps to have a disarmed population. You can't blame the American police because they don't have one. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to what you were saying,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's just one aspect, right? So you've got bias, racial bias within the
Mm-hmm.
police, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not trained, right? Where 17 weeks on average is what the American local law enforcement goes through, as opposed to years of training in Europe. So they're not
Mm-hmm.
prepared, right? Then unprepared with prejudiced cops are asked to take on mental health issues, domestic violence issues, civil disputes. I mean, the list goes on and on and on,
Right.
with a population that's armed to the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sheila, from, like, if we're going to take this to a higher consciousness kind of perspective, right? In terms of, like, because here we always kind of want to try to elevate conversation, right? I mean, because this can get depressing. I mean, it's sad. And it's okay for it to be sad. I mean, I think that's the point, right?
Right.
What do we need to do?
Yeah. My giggle is like, oh wait, I didn't even go there. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to go to the higher consciousness. But sometimes the higher consciousness is putting your boots on the ground and
Exactly.
seeing the reality
Yep.
of the world,
Yep.
and knowing that, yes, we can stand. It's not necessarily the individuals it's the whole system. The higher consciousness is using imagination. Like my show tomorrow is on imagination, because
Right.
to me, that is so important. We have to imagine a different way.
Right.
We can't get anywhere until we can imagine a different way. And I think, even though I knew these things, that reason the description of the cop in Europe made such an impact is because I had forgotten to imagine a world where that was. And it
Right.
is outside of our country. It's already here. It's already available, then we can choose it. So I
Right.
guess moving to that and realizing, and then obviously also always trying, the more we raise consciousness as a collective, the
Yeah.
more we move as a society.
I love that.
Focus on the happening,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, Sheila. I mean, again, when we go into the four states of consciousness, right? Where,
Mhm.
that whole the first state is just becoming aware, and that is
Right.
spiritual. It's okay that it's still more it more resonates in our human experience, but that's still spiritual. And for
Right.
all of us to
Right.
have a collective understanding of what's happening, right? Um, and the reality on the ground, like you said, like, on the ground. I think, like, talk about, I understand it, but talk around, defunding the police is not a solution. it's a reaction, right? And I understand the
Well, there
reaction.
are solutions in there.
Yes.
See, the defunding the police was about getting mental health, but because our society is so based on emotional impact and
Correct.
sound bites,
Correct.
the slogans are created to infuse a discussion, and right now in our society, those discussions are all about fighting.
Correct.
And we can move to more clarity in that.
Right. Because
way.
I've had friends,
But more
again.
people did notice now.
Oh yeah,
Go
absolutely.
ahead, sorry.
And no, and that's okay. I mean, the truth is, I have friends in Europe that were like, defund the police. What are you talking about? Right? It's like, we would never defund our police here, but there's different police forces, and I think that
Right. And then different
people,
funding scale. They probably don't know how much the police get here.
Right. Right.
Not the police officers, but the
Right.
Sorry.
I mean, if this is about fixing the services, that the public services that are offered to Americans, right?
Right.
And our, I'll say this from a higher consciousness point. If the services are supposed to be for the public, then the services themselves must be rooted in the public good and what the public needs, right? And so they have to be collective in nature, not like this thing where you're getting the best service for the lowest amount of money, right? Which is capitalism, right? Where public service should not be rooted in capitalism. Yes, you want to spend money wisely, but it shouldn't be so capitalistic that you're training cops for only 17 weeks and saying, go out here and fix
it all.
Yeah, do it all. There's that
right.
No.
Mental health providers have 4 to 6 or more years of college,
and they have to be certified.
And they're not being
they have to be certified by the
and
state.
So these people are taking care of, right? And there isn't someone you can call safely. Like you can't call for help. And if you have a loved one or someone in the house who's mental issue, you can't call 911 because they will send the police, and then it can escalate. I mean, I'm not telling people not to call 911, but I'm saying it's not set up to provide services. So anytime we're thinking about reaching out, we have to be thinking about whether it's worth risking somebody's life, because that's what they've shown us.
It's the local law enforcement, because they're being asked to do so much with not enough training or resources. They have become a broadsword, right? They're not a scalpel.
Right.
They're not a chisel.
Right.
They're not this strategic, thoughtful, deliberative tool. They're just called in to fix whatever's there. And basically the solution is, do you detain and lock up or not? That's the choices. That's it.
Right.
That's
so
the choice.
It's not fair to the police officers either, the way it is.
No.
The way it is being run right now is not fair to police officers.
No.
And so the solutions would help everyone.
Again, me and Kevin were talking about this, and also, who are you allowing to become a police officer?
Mm-hmm.
That's another aspect of this, right?
Right.
Where again, this fantastic article points out the fact that Professor Sherman from the University of Cambridge pointed out that policing is also not as strictly regulated in the U.S. For example, Derek Chauvin, the police officer who killed George Floyd in Minneapolis, had more than a dozen misconduct complaints.
Right.
And he was training other officers. He said
Mm-hmm.
you would not have a field training officer with a very bad disciplinary record in the English police system. That's
Right.
inconceivable.
Right. As it should be.
As it should be.
Yeah.
You know, isn't that part of that whole like blue shield kind of thing too, where there's this, you know, cops were protecting cops from being accountable?
Yeah.
You
So
know,
I have
that
some good news that happened about that.
oh, go
You
for
want
it.
some good news?
Yeah, please.
So I also heard yesterday that from a Bo video that in New Haven, Connecticut, there was a settlement. And I think it just came out, but it was for the June 2022 when Randy Cox was thrown into a divider car
Oh
with
wow.
handcuffs
Uh-huh.
and obviously not buckled or whatever, but the police officer slammed on his brakes. Randy hit the metal divider with his head and was calling out to say that he couldn't move, and the police officers didn't believe him. They mocked him and they dragged him out of the car.
Oh my
He
God.
is paralyzed, I think, from the neck down. That's not the good news. The good news is that the case, Ben Crump, the attorney Ben Crump, took
Yep.
on the case. He's the
Uh-huh.
one who has been making a huge difference in this area because we are a capitalist society.
Yep.
The settlement was $45 million, which is the largest police settlement in the U.S. history. The city's insurance only covers $30 million. So this moves past the cost of doing business mentality. So this is a huge shift because we are in a capitalist society. So sometimes using capitalism is the way to make changes.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if cities start to feel like this, is taking out of their pockets, it could change from that direction. And also, on the note that you were talking about, the 5 officers involved were charged with reckless endangerment and cruelty to persons.
Wow.
So they haven't been charged yet. I mean, they haven't been tried yet, but there was charges placed. So there is movement in accountability.
Yep.
That will get the shift like you were talking about. That salt in the water can go the other way too, where it helps to clean things up.
Well, there you go. Well, again, it doesn't take too much. It doesn't have to be this huge 51% wave that happens. It can just be like this things happen. I mean, that whole police culture is going to change because of that one act.
Right. And that's one act of many, because he also has, the lawyer has been working in this direction. And that's, I think, where it really comes down to, we need to work where our skills are and where our passions are. Right. So for me, it was bringing the topic to the conversation where other people can hear it. Maybe,
absolutely.
A lawyer can make changes, whatever your skill set is and wherever your passions are. Just make the steps that you can to make a difference, and society changes that way.
Woo. I think that's a beautiful final thought. See what we just did there? Listen, we're gonna this was a great topic, Sheila.
Thank you. And it's really just the beginning, right? Like, it's
we
but if people can keep talking to each other and just looking at different sides, we can do this.
Yeah. I really want to continue this conversation, really like bring people like Kevin back on, and we can talk about like the mental health part of this as well. Because I think that it is a complex situation, and community service oriented, conscious policing is absolutely necessary. And in public service, right? Public services have to be revamped so that there's less stress on the police. But anyway, let's get to some Soulivity shameless plugs really quickly. I guess first and foremost, amongst everything that's happening is the new book that you're part of right now, the Energy Healers Oracle. Can you talk a little bit about that really quickly?
Yeah, the Energy Healers Oracle is Tools for Total Transformation, is now available on Amazon, and it's 20 different master healers from around the world. Each of us having a section in a chapter to highlight one of the healing modalities that are unique to our work. And Zach, my partner Zach Hansen, who's been on the show, and I wrote about fractal illumination, which is an energy modality that came to us when we got together. So go check it out on Amazon.
Yay. And as always, you've got your soul connection sessions happening at your website, SheilaApplegate.com. You know, please go check that out as well.
Yes.
Man, this was a great show.
It was a good show.
You know, man, yeah, we definitely need to talk more about this. I think that it will really bringing awareness to this and continuing to bring awareness to this can only mean that change will come, right? That I think that you want, and that you've been kind of feeling in your heart, that I want, and that other people really need as well. Yeah. So thanks, Sheila.
You're welcome. And hopefully that's a piece of hope, because I think that is partly why I cried when I saw the video too, because it was not just the pain of seeing it, but also the hope that there are solutions out there. We don't have to invent the wheel.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this is how we do it here at This Morning with Soulivity. Listen, please remember to follow us on social media. And join our mailing list by visiting the This Morning Soulivity site at soulivity.com/this morning. You can get access to exclusive information by doing so. And on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you for joining us for this episode of This Morning with Soulivity. We hope that you come back as always and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast on our Soulivity platform. Or you can listen 9 a.m. Pacific on Thursdays and Fridays on KMET 1490 AM radio for all of you out on the West Coast. Until next time, keep having real conversations with passion and purpose, and create your best life of high quality living today. We'll see you next time. Bye.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.